Jessica Seel, I am Dennis Gillan. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really
Well,
good.
welcome to our podcast. It's a tough subject. I always struggle with the openings, but I want to get your feedback. We have a really good topic today because this is the first time I've seen you since we did the live show. It's a tough subject live. We took it on the road. On the road is like a mile from my house.
It was on the
Really,
road for me.
that it was about an hour and a half for you. And thank you for coming up and driving all the way to Greenville, South Carolina. But we put the flag in the ground. Gosh, it had to be a year ago. I put a deposit down. I always wanted to do a live show. Everything had to come together, and it really did come together. The title came together. You came together with it. It's a tough subject. The podcast. I had none of this when I put the deposit down, and I delayed it. I was supposed to do it last year, and I said, I'm not ready. And, everything on God's timing. I think we were ready the other day. I
Thought it
think
was
it went very
great.
well.
I did too, and I had some guests with me, and I knew they'd give me honest feedback, and they loved it. I mean, it's a topic, it's hard to say you love it, but they felt like it was powerful. And one of those people actually told me that they had been experiencing some of those challenges that you mentioned, not that they were thinking about taking their life, but it wasn't just about that. I think it was eye-opening to some of the things that we all struggle with.
And Jessica's referring to a section of the talk. We go, there's a lot of stories. There was a lot of great audience participation with the Reddit posts. And there's a part where I go over risk factors and warning signs. And
Yeah.
sometimes I stress hard. I say, listen, you're going to be thinking about someone, but that person could be you. And it's happened a couple of times, where people have said, when you were going over the warning signs, people give me feedback like, I was there.
Yeah.
You had an hour and a half car ride home with these folks. Did you all come together?
No, no. I was riding by myself. I had a full day of work actually in that area and then had some folks come up and meet me there.
Well, that was very nice of them.
Yeah, I had a friend from New York that was down. So we had a great group of folks there. And they just honestly came because they were obviously interested, but also it's interesting, and I noticed it for you too. Isn't it great how when people that care about you know that something's important to you, they show up?
They do. That was really cool. And it's good and bad. I was talking about this earlier to a friend of mine. I said, it's harder when you know the audience. Those were people I know. When I go on the road,
Yeah.
speaking out of
You could
college,
just
and
be anybody,
it's just,
right?
it's an off. I'm not belittling any audience. They're awesome, but I don't know them until we get done with the evening. Then I know them. But it's hard when your son's in the audience, which he was. I made a wisecrack about my divorce, and I immediately felt bad about it because my son was there.
Well, we're going to go ahead and put out a disclaimer. I'm glad you said that because I've had many people, my best friends, like, I was just listening to your podcast. I was like, oh, you were? And she's like, you said something about me, but it wasn't bad. And I was like, oh my gosh. But you know what? You may recognize a story about yourself on here. You're part of our life. You're part of our journey. So, we don't use names.
You bring up a great point because we get feedback. We often get feedback, and it's really difficult to share it because it's personal. And I'll use the show. March 18th, we did a live show in Greenville. Somebody who wasn't supposed to be there, and I have to talk in like generalities here. Somebody who wasn't supposed to be there was there by circumstance, which means they really were supposed to be there, but it was not on their agenda until that day. And then they found themselves listening to the talk. And at the end of the talk, they felt compelled to come up to me and share a very personal story. So in a weird way, they were supposed to be there.
Yeah, I hear you. I think I remember that happening to you.
It happens all the time. And this is the weird part about marketing a talk on a tough subject. You don't want to go to the person, hey, can you sign this waiver and I could use that in social media? Like, you don't say any of that. You just hug the person and you go, holy crap, you should have been on stage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they tell you these stories that are unbelievable.
Well, I have to tell you one thing that stood out for me, that I got to see your brothers. We talk about the
Oh,
people that we lost, and
yeah.
I've shown you a picture of my dad on my wall, but I actually got to see your brothers, which was great for me because I like to know kind of who we're talking about and not just their story, but to be able to visualize. So that was pretty good stuff.
That helps with the live show. Yeah, looking back, I got some critiques. I get it. The setup wasn't ideal with the two screens to the side. It'd be nice to have one big screen behind me. We're working out the kinks. Like it's never going to be perfect. And the audio, some of the stuff, and that was kind of funny how we had we had audience participation, but we had no number 8, but we had 2 number 9s, of which you were one.
It had to be me. It was me because that's just how it is, and that's the story of my life, Dennis.
And I literally delegated that because I was screwing it up left and right, those numbers. We had, for the audience listening to the podcast, I would call out a number, 1 through 10, and somebody in the audience had that number. And they would read a Reddit post which said, formerly suicidal people of Reddit, what changed for you? It was awesome. It was powerful. They got to tell a little bit about their story. I mean, we had Carrie Driggers telling her personal story, a cute story from a board member, Baloo, how she got on the board by meeting my wife in a store because of her tattoo. I mean, really cool stories. And then they got to read the post. And I got to number 8. And nobody said a word. Then I got to number 9, and they said, 2 of you and Nicole from Mental Health America.
Which I knew her. We serve on an advisory board together, so we're all in the same world. I got to see some great friends from DMA, Department of Mental Health, there that I didn't know were going to be there. That actually the person that trained me to speak was there, so it was like a full circle moment for me. It was good to see her.
It was really well done. I think, not going to try to break my arm, patting ourselves on the back.
And it was a beautiful night, Dennis. Don't. Somebody was watching over us. Beautiful night. No, it wasn't cold. It wasn't rainy. It was perfect for people to walk up. It was a beautiful location. It was just perfect, I thought.
And you had to get on the road. So what happened after the talk? We went for about, if I listen to the tape, we went for an hour and 17 minutes, which I'm perfect with that. I said anywhere between an hour and 15, hour and a half. With the DJ, people will give you that. But after that, people check out. So we went about 1 hour and 17 minutes. And then we got to walk down the street, which you had to go home.
Yeah.
There was a restaurant right down the corner. And we all went there for a debrief. And it was, people stayed. I wouldn't say half the theater. About 70% of the people went to the restaurant.
Well, now we're going to have to do one here in my town so I can
Say
stay.
the word.
Can stay. We'll figure it out. Let's make it happen.
And to the listener listen to the podcast, say the word. I mean it. Like all we had to do is find a local theater, and this was a community theater. They charged us a nonprofit rate. Now we have to figure out a way to monetize this thing a little bit to make it sustainable. Because I'm going to tell you the truth, we took a bath, but it was a proof of concept. I invested in this thing, and it was the foundation said, let's try this. And I didn't say take a bath. We had to advertise it. There's a marketing budget. There's the debrief afterwards. We picked up the tab, and we charged a nominal fee for the tickets. It was a deal. Think about this. These folks got for $15. It was a bargain. They got a great talk, and then they got free food. The food alone, the cannolis, and that was easily worth it.
I'm sorry, nobody told me about that, or maybe I would have just gotten home later.
Oh, I got
That
some in my
place
freezer.
looked adorable. I wish I could go there. Unfortunately, where I live is not as cool and hip, I would say, as Greenville, but it's got its benefits.
It doesn't matter. Any little place will do. A little community theater, a place to just, have a pint, as they say, or me and my athletic near beer, something. In fact, they had a water jug set up. Folks, I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in 30 years. But they had a water jug set up, and after the talk, I was dying of thirst. I must have had like 5 or 6 cups of water, which kind of wrecked my sleep that night. I had to keep getting up to go to the bathroom, but I was exhausted that night.
I bet.
I'm sure you were too. You worked, and then you came on stage, did your thing.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. I was not nervous. Maybe I was nervous for you. I personally wasn't nervous because I didn't really have anything to be nervous about. But this is so TMI. I have to tell you a funny story though. I had on the cutest shoes. I kept getting compliments on them. Like I said, it was a warm night, relatively, and you want to start wearing your open-toed shoes if you're a woman, maybe a man too, I don't know. And my feet sweat when I get nervous. And I went to get up, and I couldn't hardly walk in my shoes. And I surely couldn't walk back to my seat. And I was like, my God, I don't know if anybody noticed this, but I was having struggling walking back up to my seat. And my husband was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I don't know why. Am I nervous? I'm not nervous. Maybe I'm nervous for Dennis. I don't know. Maybe it was just the subject. And that, when you start talking about things, you don't outwardly realize that it's affecting you, but weird little things may happen. And I'm thinking that's what may have happened.
We talked about a tough subject. It's trauma for both of us. And this, the body reacts in the weirdest ways. It just does. If you swallow your problems, your stomach keeps score, but it comes out in other ways. There was a time, it was so funny, I would get nervous and for some reason my breath would stink. And I had to
Oh,
give this talk and a friend of mine goes, "Here, take this mint." I said, "I don't need it." They go, "Oh, you
you
need it."
do. Well,
And it was,
you can remedy that. You can't remedy sweaty feet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you had to come down a couple steps. It was a steep incline to your seat. I brought you and Nicole on
Yeah.
stage. You were the only ones that made it to the stage, by the way, because
Yeah.
we had two number nines, which I think worked out great.
Yeah, it did. It did. It was good. I thought it was really good. And I actually liked being towards the end. You know, it's I don't know why. It's just everybody was kind of loosened up by then. Folks were interacting. They knew what to expect, and it just made it better. And I have to wear my glasses to be able to read and see, but I
Yeah.
can't see anything. So I couldn't see anybody looking at me because I can't see with the glasses on because I'm farsighted. So I was telling Tim, our producer, that I was like, wow, I said, I got up there and I was reading and I had to have my glasses, but then I looked up and I couldn't see anything. Maybe that was helpful.
It was really helpful, and you'll notice from the perspective of being on the stage, the lights were really bright because they're on you, and I couldn't see the audience. I didn't know my son was there until I came down afterwards. I couldn't see out there. Like, and you ever see when even like watching Netflix or a comedy show, the guy goes like this to
Hmm.
see the audience. Hey, who said that? They can't they can't see, and now
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You couldn't. You saw these like gelatinous little beings out there, but you didn't know who the face was.
But it was there. Everybody was. There were friendly faces because I could see them because I was sitting in the audience, and you could tell. I mean, obviously there were a lot of familiar faces for me because I do this work all
Mm.
across the state, and so I saw a lot of folks that I do work with, and I was really pleased to see them there supporting, and everybody else. And no, they didn't look the same. Gosh, there was such a variety of people in the room, age, ethnicity, sex. I mean, everybody. It really represented, this whole diverse group of people that we know that mental health and suicide, it doesn't really care who you are.
Some of that was accidental, some of that was intentional, by the way. Like when I got the DJ and I found out it was a female, I'm like, perfect.
Yeah.
Because mental health affects all of us. And then when I went to Greenville High School for the first time, they gave me two students, and they're both African American, female and male. I'm like, perfect. Two of those girls I never met before. They weren't at practice. Talasia was at practice. She was there. She was the African American female. She went to both practices. That's why she had number 1 and 10, because she was the veteran. She started it and she ended it. And the other two girls, Micah and Audrey, I met them the first time.
Well, you when you're working with kids, you're on kids' schedules, and
And they're awesome. They're all awesome. They
yeah.
brought an energy level. How about you think of Micah kicked it off, which is crazy good because she didn't go to practice or anything. She signed up and she ended up with number 1. And then poor Audrey, she ended up going after I talked about my younger brother dying. And she comes up to the stage. I don't know if you could see this. She has tears in her eyes. And now she's got to read that Reddit part.
No, I didn't. You couldn't see
Oh, you
that.
can, from my perspective, she
Maybe
comes up and
somebody else could. I was on the side, so
yeah, you were on the other side. She was wiping tears from her eyes. That's what this talk does. And then, then we go from tears to a bunch of guys on one wheels coming through the audience, which was hilarious.
I didn't know what was happening. And everybody's like, "What are you talking about?"
It was bizarro. And just to give you some background, a lot of this came together last minute, including my slides, by the way. At 4 o'clock when I went down for the sound check, I was still changing stuff because I didn't know the flow so far. Like I had a good idea because I've done this a million times. Like I had to drop a lot of stuff to get in that time frame.
Yeah.
So halfway through, Carrie Driggers goes up there and tells her personal story. She tells a wonderful story and then reads the post. And I could see in the hallway, all these lights are showing up. And the audience couldn't see it, but I could see it. I'm like, oh crap, they're here. And they're early. I wanted them to come around like the camo hat club. We went over the camouflage
Yeah.
club. I want to talk about community, but they're way early and I don't want to hold them up. So after Carrie went, I talked about community and meeting, and then they come running through the theater, which was hilarious. We went from this really deep confession of, a personal struggle to like, hey, find your tribe, and here's a tribe that's out there, and these guys come blowing through the theater. It just, no one had more fun at that point than I did.
Is that your tribe? Are you doing one wheelers now?
No, I wrote them. I wrote them a note. They say they're going to get me out there one day. They're really
I
cool.
could see a concussion happening for me, but
Full pads, helmet, almost a suit of armor if I'm
yes,
doing that
yes,
thing.
me
There's
too.
elbow,
It did look
elbow.
fun, though. It did look fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, they're a good group. I actually got a hold of them on Reddit. There was a post or something. I said I wrote a note. I said I love when you guys ride by my neighborhood, and they do on Tuesday nights. They ride right by my house, and the first time it happened, I ran out there like, oh, cool, and I look forward to it. And so I wrote him a note, and one guy wrote back. I was like, "Are you being sarcastic?" I'm like, "Dude, no, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm a mental."
What?
He just, they don't know. Some people go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I love it." You could read it. You could say it like this: "I love when you ride by my house." Depends on the tone.
Yeah.
And it was just a written word. So I said, "No, dude, I love when you come by." And I said, "By the way, I have a proposal for you." And that's how we hooked up with that flyby from the One Wheel Club of Greenville.
Greenville is just, I can't say it enough. It's just a cool town. You're lucky to live in that little area. And it seems like the other thing I noticed about it is there's a lot of movement, and obviously getting out, breathing fresh air, moving around is so good for you. And I just see that in that community. It kind of exudes a lot of healthy activities and behaviors. And only people like us would probably notice things like that, but communities are so important, not just you know, communities mean different things to different people, but when you have the ability to live somewhere that supports your well-being, I mean, that's incredible, you know?
And that's what a lot of people are looking for now with remote work. They're looking
Yeah.
for places where they go, where they can find their tribe and live a lifestyle that's, conducive to positive mental health. And for the casual listener out there, Greenville has a vibrant downtown, and there's a lot of towns out there in America that do that, where people come out at night. And I've been to some towns, like when I was
Yeah.
traveling, there are some towns where downtown is desolate at night.
Mm-hmm.
Like people leave, and that's unfortunate. I don't want to rat out any cities, but I was in a major Midwest city, and I got a hotel downtown at 5 o'clock. It was a ghost town. Everybody
Really?
left. They
Really?
went back to the suburbs. Yeah, and I'm not talking about St. Louis, but I'm talking about downtown. They have a lot of suburbs. There's a lot of nightlife there. I may have been in the wrong spot, but everybody bolted, and you get cities like Chicago. I remember everyone comes downtown at night. There's stuff to do. Greenville's one of those towns where people
Yes.
come out at night. So, for any healthy community, a communal center like a downtown area, we're very lucky. We have a trail that gets a lot of people moving called the Swamp Rabbit Trail. And we had a vision. We're very fortunate, and this is for anyone, any town in USA. We had a strong mayor who's been there for a while, and he took over from another guy who's been there for a while, and they both were on the same page. And
I
that helps.
remember that when they had just started that because I was at a meeting years and years and years ago before I did this work. And I live in Columbia, in the center of South Carolina. I live actually in a rural community outside of Columbia, and we struggled. And they've been working really hard to model after Greenville, which is who really, started this transformation of the downtown area. And we're getting there, but we're not quite Greenville. I came up there last summer in August, just a random night, and spent the night down there. And there was so much activity, and just it was all different types of people walking around. And this was like at 10:30 at night. I was like, "What's going on?" They were like, "This is just a weekend night."
Yeah, it's got a vibe, and I root for a lot of towns out there because it does affect your mental health. I moved here on purpose.
Yeah.
Find a place like that. Back to the mental health component of it.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to rat out the South a little bit here. I'm going to transition from the big show, which was a hit, and I want to do it elsewhere, but I'm going to rat out the South right now. If you look at my eyes, if you're watching this online and you hear my voice is a little raspy, we have pollen right now. We're in springtime, and I'm getting my butt kicked. And a little known fact there, Jessica, that springtime is the worst time for suicides.
You explained that to me. I was a little surprised,
A
but
lot of people think it's the holidays or all that, but springtime.
yeah.
And I lost literally two days this week. I lost 2 afternoons, somewhere around 3 o'clock. I had to go to bed. And that's how allergies present themselves to me: fatigue. I could sleep. I could sleep 8 hours a night. I could drink a cup of coffee, and when my allergies are kicking in, I can go right back to bed. And I have done that on a Saturday morning after 8 hours of unbelievable sleep. Got up, had a cup of coffee, looked at my wife, and said, "I'm going back to bed." That's what they do to me. They knock me on my rear end.
That's interesting because I've been taking naps and I'm not a napper. And I was wondering, I was just thinking that before I got on our podcast. I was like, gosh, I'm tired. I haven't really done that much.
Well, there's an inflammatory response where your body perceives pollen. I've done way too much research on this for myself. Your body perceives pollen as a foreign invader and mounts an overreaction. It is a foreign invader, but it doesn't warrant like this, snotty nose, eyes. It doesn't warrant that. But your body overreacts, in my humble opinion, and it just crushes me. I mean, the bags under the eyes, the sleep at night, obviously interrupted by the congestion. And there's another component to suicides in spring. People are now out doing stuff and they should feel better. And if you were in the dark depths of winter, you just think it's normal. Winter's dark, winter's cold. I don't feel so good. It's normal. Here comes springtime. Birds are out chirping, sun's out, and I still don't feel good.
Yeah.
That's when it's like, what is up? So the message for our listeners, it's a tough subject, is check on your loved ones hard this spring.
Yes, yes. And also recognizing what may be making me feel a certain way. I thought, and being aware, self-aware, I thought, what's going on with me? Why am I tired? Am I fatigued? Am I depressed? But, turns out it's really something that I don't have a whole lot of control over. So I'm really glad you said that. That answered a question for me because I suffer as well. I also have really dark circles. I have my whole life and take multiple medications and still deal with it. But I'm not going to be stuck inside. I can't do it. Can't do it.
No, it's hard because last night I did go out and do my mental health therapy, which is tennis. I'm part of a tribe there. You talk about finding your tribe. This text chain has got like 19 people on it. And we had 4 courts, which is 16. So 16 of the 19 showed up, and you gotta have that number. It has to be right. 4 people on a court. It has to be 16, 20, 24, whatever the multiples are. Because if you don't show up, it screws things up. So when you sign up, you sign up. And that's a good part of community, I think. Because if I didn't show up last night, I would have got a text from the guy who organized it saying, where the hell are you? And the other, hopefully what he would have said was, are you okay? Instead of, hey, you screwed up our tennis night. Like, is everything okay? And if we were on that court and there was 3 of us and we'll pick a random name, like Phil didn't show up, we would get on the phone and call Phil, which is nice because that means someone's checking on you. If Phil fell in his house and couldn't get up, there we go. Or Phil was in a car accident and was in the hospital, we'd find out.
Yeah.
So stressing the community aspect again. Here I go. I'm back on the
and that also
the tribe.
helps with that loneliness factor, right?
Exactly. And last night I met 2 people I never played with before. So I'm expanding this. I'm 61. I know I look 59. Thank you. But I watched my dad lose friends as he got older.
Yeah.
He just through a lot. And here I am. I'm adding people, which is really cool. And I couldn't do it by myself. There's no way. But some kind of club or something like that will help you. And I'm on this kick now about community because I thought what we did at the theater was community. It became a tribe. A stick alone could be broken by a child. A stick in a bundle cannot be broken. But whatever you do it with a group. I was on Meetup. It sounds like a hookup site, Meetup, but it's for hobbyists. It does. I'm not. It would be a great name for a site like that, Meetup, Hookup, whatever. But it's actually where you go. I used to go on there to sign up for hikes, to go hiking. That's where I first found out about Meetup. The club used that as their vehicle. So get on there. If you like to journal or write science fiction, I don't care what you do, but do it with somebody else.
Oh, 100%. I have a friend that I walk with every week in the morning, at least once a week, and we work out together some, but we didn't get to do that this week, and I miss it because I'm training for a half marathon. I've got 2 weeks left, so that's not a community. That's a different, you're on your own. That's when you have an activity that allows you to think and and challenge yourself. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to bring this up to you after this podcast, but I think next week, hopefully, or at some point, I'd like to talk about doing hard things because
Half marathon's a hard thing.
Well, yeah, but it's just been something that's been on my mind, and I think it directly affects some of us that have had losses and how we address things that are difficult in life. And it's part of healing.
For the casual listener out there, a half marathon is 13.1 miles. Is that what it is?
Yeah. And here I am going, it's not really that hard because it's not a full marathon now. It's not 26.2, which is never anything I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that. But I did do 10 miles last week. And man, I was on top of the world for the rest
Wow.
of the weekend.
So if you could do 10 miles, this is from my limited running experience. I have done a marathon. One. The Gillan motto's one and done. It was rough. I don't want to brag, but you know what I ran it in? T-shirt and shorts. Stop it. I wanted to be under 4 hours, and I ran it in 4 hours and 57 seconds. Too close.
See,
If I,
it's not a time thing. There's different mindsets of runners.
I
I'm a
know, I
finisher.
know.
I want the medal. I want the T-shirt. I'm gonna finish it. That might. Hey, folks, listen. To people wanting to find something to do to kind of get out and help themselves and feel better, and you're like, I can't run. You don't have to run the whole thing. That's something
No.
I'm learning. I'm gonna do what works for me to get through those 13.1 miles, and it's all individual. Don't over challenge yourself.
It's individual to the end. There's a big community at the end. They always have like a big party. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget this. I slogged through the last mile of that damn thing. The Chicago Marathon in 2001. And a couple guys did it with me and it was fun. But I remember getting through the finish line. I'm dying. And these guys come flying by me because they just finished behind me. And they go right up to, there was a beer truck. And they go right up to the van. And they get a cup and they're like replacing their fluids with, booze, beer. I just started cracking up. Like, oh, where do they? I couldn't even walk. And they just went right by me and said, "See you, bud." And went right to the beer truck.
Well, and I'll tell you, one beer probably put them on their butt.
Hey, whatever works. They just ran 26.2 miles.
Well,
They earned it.
before I don't want to go too deep into this, but one of the hardest things, and we'll talk about that another time, that I ever did was do an all night long relay race from Columbia to Charleston, South Carolina, through back roads. People opened up their doors for us. You talk about a community. It was the coolest thing I ever did in my life. It was not great. Now, people are like, how could that be fun? Because there were 12 people on a team, and the teamwork and the support and the just like being at your most vulnerable and having people pick you up was so powerful. It was incredible. I think it was something I remember for the rest of my life.
I could do that. I could do stuff like that when I was younger. Not now. There's no way.
Oh God, and we were sleeping on like in lawn chairs I'm not even kidding you, in the back road in an old rundown liquor store. There were like people out in
That's
chairs.
it. Sleep.
Yeah,
I
it
did
was
some-
horrible that way. You emotional. But we drank a beer afterwards, and then we're like, how are we going to get home from Charleston now? Because you can't replenish your fluids, folks, with alcohol. That doesn't work.
No. It's diuretic too, some of
Yeah.
that stuff. So be careful.
Yeah.
I did that one time, but I was a young kid. I was 1980, Nyack High School. Our budget got voted down, the school budget, which means we had no sports. And I was on the cross country team at the time, and I was not good at it. And they always need somebody to come in last. I was that guy. We did a 24-hour run for the budget, which meant we slept on the football field. But I was young, man. I was like 16, so I could do that. Now you mention that, there's no way I'm sleeping in a lawn chair.
It was your body will do things in your mind to you when it needs sleep and rest that you have no control over. But I don't know. There's something about it that was just weird. Weirdly, like something you want to do again and again and again.
Well, let's bring it back home to suicide prevention and sleep. We talked about this at the show.
Yes.
I always come back to the show. Sleep is such an underrated positive coping skill. Sleep deprivation will wreck you.
Yeah.
And I have friends of mine who were in the military, and they told me about these training exercises they were gone. They had to go like that's somewhere down in Georgia at Fort Benning, and they had it like two days in the woods, and they couldn't sleep or whatever,
Oh.
and they were hallucinating.
I bet. And your mind starts to play tricks on you, and if you're already at a vulnerable state, yeah, I can see that for sure.
So that's why I think I covered that during the positives.
You did, and I listened to you because my husband and I'm like, we need to get in bed, but I also enjoy getting up early. I think you mentioned that, and having, a day, get yourself ready for the day, and there's so much benefit to it. Listen, when I was young, I'd stay up all night long and sleep all day. That's
It's good to be young.
Yeah, it is.
Now it's like you get older, and this is funny for the younger listeners. You're like, I need to sleep. I need a good bowel movement. All these little things, like A hot shower would be good. And we're going to move the mirror from above the bed and we're going to put it above the dining room table because food is so important now. We're foodies now. Like, we don't need it in the bedroom. Put it over the, I want to see what I'm eating. Oh, yeah, that's good.
And the fan. You talked about that. My husband and I, that's our thing. He made me love fans. He has to have this perfect area of like sleeping. Now, when I was young, when you're young, you sleep wherever you can fall, right? But now you got to have this like whole setup.
Well, for the casual listener, we spoke about three things. I gave three tips about sleep. One, the room has to be dark, and I
Yep.
wear a mask. And I swear, my neighbor built a house. They have these spotlights. I don't see them. It bugs my wife, but I'm like, I got the mask on. I'm good. The room has to be dark. The room has to be cold, 64 to 68 degrees. And then he recommended some kind of white noise machine.
Yeah.
And some people may be using this podcast as white noise. Go to listen to our voices. We knock them out. We bore them. I hope we don't bore you, but I hope we cover a lot of topics in this tough subject podcast. It's a tough subject because it is a tough subject. And Jessica, I'm just looked up at the clock. We're winding into right where our sweet spot is.
Yeah.
And I would encourage a listener, if you think you'd be a good guest on the show, get a hold of us. You can write me a note. Go to my website, halfastar.org, say, listen, I have a story to tell, and then we'll vet you. And we're looking for guests as we continue the season. We have some folks lined up. To date, we've had one guest that was, Chaplain John Denny, who does the post-venture work. And we got great response from that. So we want to do more. So if you have a story to tell, let us know it, and we'll bring you on board and we'll let you tell it. So, Jessica, that's all I got for today. I appreciate you showing up and driving an hour and a half to come to the big show.
Of course. That's what we do. It's our community. We support each other.
Even Tim drove up, our producer
That's
from Commerce,
right.
Georgia. He drove 2 hours to come to see the darn thing. And I want to thank everybody who showed up and everyone who supported us. There were people who donated, didn't come. They just said, good luck, and helped foot the bill. And I thank you very much. We couldn't do it without you. And we want to do more of them. That's a fact. So if you're out there listening, you got a municipality, you got a little community theater, and you got a desire, say the word. We'll make it work. Folks, that's all I got. That's Jessica Seel. I'm Dennis Gillan. This is It's a Tough Subject. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Bye.